Hello, everyone. I welcome you all to the second episode of SCCI webinar in collaboration with ICTA Sri Lanka and in partnership with Plan 9 Pakistan. I'm Fatima Anwar, Associate Director Communications from SAARC Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And to give you a quick overview, the SCCI is an apex business organization under the SAARC Secretariat and representing the business community across 8 countries. Our mission is to foster regional economic integration. And in 2019, we organized a series of boot camps focusing on strengthening startup ecosystems in South Asia, successfully holding them in Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Maldives, and Nepal, with participation from Bhutan and Pakistan as well. During COVID, we transitioned from physical boot camps to the online webinars. And in 2024, we again resumed, and our focus was on emphasizing on the successful startup stories. And we are truly honored to have Mr. Zulfer, who is the founder of PickMe from Sri Lanka, as a key speaker, and he is our guest speaker. And we are privileged to have Mr. Amzad Hussain, who is the chairperson of SAARC Young Entrepreneur Forum and the chairman of Gibson Securities Limited from Bangladesh. He is the moderator for today's session. Before we proceed, I would like to request all the participants to kindly share your questions in the Zoom chat, and these will be addressed during the last 15 minutes. We are also streaming live on Facebook, SAARC's SCCI Facebook page, and our YouTube channel. I will share the link in the chat box as well. Thank you so much. Over to you, Mr.
Amzad. Thank you very much, Fatima. Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Zulfer, and welcome all the participants of today's webinar. So,
Thank you.
So Mr. Zulfer, you have started your career as a corporate individual, as the CTO of Wow.lk, but you transformed your career and now you have become an entrepreneur. So can you please tell us what was the story of your shift of your journey and becoming an entrepreneur?
Right. So I think, first of all, I'd like to thank SAARC for inviting me. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be here at this webinar. To answer your question, I think this, my career started with entrepreneurship. So I think I started my entrepreneurship journey before even I finished school. So I have a history of entrepreneurship experience. So my only corporate experience was when I took a stint at Microsoft for a short while, but then I went on to start another startup with my friends. And that's probably why you saw me as the CTO in my profile. But I've been in entrepreneurship, 95% of my time as an entrepreneur.
That's very interesting. Yeah, since your school days, you were into entrepreneurship, and I guess that motivated you to make your career as an entrepreneur.
So I think what really comes out of that is the experience, right? I think that's the most important thing. I'm sure because we should know, obviously, we're all South Asian in our culture, and we have essentially attributes that are very common to all of us, right? I think all our parents tell us, we should be a doctor or an accountant or whatnot, right? So I grew up in that environment, but I was obviously stubborn enough to say that I'll pave my own way. And I think the key there was the experience, right? Being able to start early in life and say, and getting that experience in so that you are able to to play in the big league, right? If I may put it that way, right? So starting early in entrepreneurship is very important in my view, right? Because people will say, why don't you first do a job and think about entrepreneurship? Because the minute you get into a monthly pay, you get into that cycle of, expecting your monthly pay every month. Because when you are an entrepreneur, there isn't a thing called monthly pay, right? You don't have a salary to work on, right? You have to work on, you have to work on wealth creation, you have to work on profitability and stuff like that. So the thinking has to start early, so that you are able to, handle yourself when you have a bigger opportunity in front of you.
Okay, coming to another point, like the gap analysis. So you have identified that in transport sector in Sri Lanka, there is a gap and there is a requirement for innovation. So how did you do the gap analysis and how successful you have become to identifying the fact?
So, I think we all knew. I think we all know that ride-hailing sort of picked up at the same time around the world. So I think we all have gone through hailing a taxi. You know how in this part of the world, how difficult it is, right, to get a taxi whenever you need one. Haggling for the price. Making sure that you don't piss off the driver, right? Generally, the power was within the drivers and not with the customers. So I think as ride hailing were taking off, I recognize that as a key problem, and that's essentially why why we launched PickMe in Sri Lanka. At that time, we were the first to sort of start ride hailing for a three-wheeler, right? I don't think even India started by then. But I think we started by saying let's sort of digitize three-wheelers first before we go into anything else, because three-wheelers was very close to us, at least in this part in this country, because everyone commuted on a three-wheeler, and we wanted to sort of disrupt or digitize hailing of a three-wheeler at the beginning of our company.
Yes, three-wheeler is quite popular in this part of the country, world in Asia, and so that's how you have become successful. So that's a good strategy. Can you give us a little insight about PickMe, like the statistics? How many registered clients do you have? How many rides per year you shared, and some of the economic?
Sure. So today we have over 10 million users registered with us. We are in fact the second largest mobility platform in the country. When I say mobility platform, I'm talking about when it comes to even public transport, right? After buses, we will be number 2. So we move a lot of people, as you can see. So we've essentially become a very important mobility mode of mobility in Sri Lanka. And we have over 200,000 vehicles registered with us.
10 million is a very big number, almost close to half of the population of Sri Lanka. So that's a huge success, we assume.
Thank you.
Another point is, can you please tell us about the economic factors and also the success of economic success, how you have overcome those points during your journey?
So I think when you say economic, what are you referring to? Are you looking at profitability?
Like the financial viability.
Sure. Yeah. No, I think we knew that the model can work, right? So we just had to get to scale very fast, right? The model won't work without scale, so we had to get to scale very fast. So it was very important that we invest into that business so that we get scale, ASAP. But we actually knew that the unit economics is there, and we just have to get many users onto the platform. So I hope I answered that question.
Yes, correct. We see that many startups after a certain stage, they become unable to grow due to internal reason. And when we face external problems, that's even severe. So during COVID-19, that was a crisis for everyone. So how did you handle that challenge?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So remember, Sri Lanka has been, I mean, COVID is one of the problems we face in Sri Lanka, but we had many other problems, right? We were the country, I mean, we obviously after COVID, we went bankrupt, right, as a country. Just before COVID, a year before, we had what we call an Easter attack, right? There were about 5 bombs that took off in 5-star hotels. So we as a country have gone through many ups and downs. So we have to be well planned to handle that. So I think what we did was, as a company, sort of ensure that we don't work with hope, right? Hope of something will work well for us, but we worked with a sort of a model where we look at how bad can this become, right? And then planned our way through, right? So obviously during COVID, I think when COVID hit, none of us knew how long this will prevail. I think we all weren't sure how the world would look after COVID. So I think we essentially planned for the worst, right? And essentially said, do we have the capital so that we have a runway for at least 12 months, right? Maybe 12 to 24 months, right? Do we have enough? What do we do to cut down our costs, right? I think one of the things we did was we got rid of our real estate as fast as we could so that we can save money on that. So we made up many plans so that we are able to handle if COVID was to continue for another year or two, right? So that for us was a key factor. We didn't hope for better things, right? We were not biased in thinking that, hey, you know what, COVID will go away in 3 months or so. So we actually planned ourselves so that we are able to handle the bad news early.
Yeah. So we faced that was one challenge. And after that, also you mentioned that political crisis and then economic crisis. So during that economic crisis, the inflation rose up as well as fuel costs went up. So did you face any further challenge like cutting down employment or any other thing you had to adjust during that time?
So economic crisis wasn't that bad as COVID, if I may put it that way, right? Of course, inflation was a problem. We didn't have fuel in the country, so we had to manage our way through. So it was more of, I mean, we knew that people had to move around, and that's a good thing about our business, right? When there's economic activities, we have business. So we have to make sure that we are aligned to that. And we had to make sure that we open opportunities around that area. During the economic crisis, we ran a petrol shed in Sri Lanka, right? So that we can refuel our own vehicles as soon as possible, right? So these are things that we plugged into our platform so that we are able to get our vehicles running, right? Because if the vehicles run, we make money. So that's what we did. That's one example of what we did. We did many other activities during the economic crisis, right? Remember, inflation went up. We had to adjust our prices very fast and make sure that both our drivers and our passengers were able to depend on the platform.
That was a very timely decision you took during back then. Another point, can you please tell us about the technology you use and the technology use of the technology and the support system? A little bit of.
So I don't think, is it during this time or are you referring to that same time or are you referring to technology in general?
Overall, in general.
Sure. So I think our technologies obviously keep evolving. We've gone a long way from using a MySQL database to data lakes now, and we are evolving. There's many things as I speak taking place. We want to stay ahead of the curve. We want to make sure that we invest on R&D. There is a lot of AI work that we do today, right? We have an AI lab now. We're working on the future in terms of what more we can do with AI. So there is many things that is happening in a company like ours. It's essentially important that we keep investing on this so that we are able to. We don't want another company coming to disrupt us. So we have to stay ahead of our game.
Also, at the same time, you collect plenty of data and analyze those data. So how would you ensure the ethical use of those data and how would you ensure that those information are properly protected?
So one in Sri Lanka, we have a like the GDPR of Europe, of EU. We have a GDPR of Sri Lanka. So so data is handled in that governance, right? So we call it PDPA here. So obviously, we do have a lot of data science work that takes place, but we really can't identify a person per se, right? So what we are trying to do is we are using the data for better good for the country, but also making sure that personal information is not put out there. Obviously, we are a public company as well now, so we take governance very seriously, and we've built in many gates to ensure that our data is not misused.
Okay. So you started with passenger mobility, and then you have added other services like delivery of parcel and many other value-added services. So how would you shift those services and added those value additions, as well as what is your future plan? So do you have any more plan to bringing any other value-added services under your platform?
I wouldn't be able to speak about the future, but I can certainly tell you about the past, right? Of course, we started as a ride-hailing company, but today we are not a ride-hailing company. We are very much a mobility company. So we not just move people, we move goods, and we try to move as many things as possible, right? So we evolved. Like I said, we are a mobility company now, and we want to play in that space, right? I think our biggest strength is that, right? There are terms like liquidity. We've got liquidity in the country, which makes us a very we can essentially find a driver wherever in this country, right? So that strength is very powerful for us. And that's what makes us a market leader, if I may put it that way, right? So we're not anymore a ride-hailing company. We are a technology and a mobility company now.
Yeah. We are almost at the final stage of our webinar. So I would like to request our participants to write down their questions on the chat box, as well as Mr. Zulfer. What messages do you have for one is like all our participants. Second one is the young generation of this South Asia, as well as the individuals who are interested in startups and also interested in creating or disrupting traditional industries.
All right. Okay. So I see two questions there. What advice would I give to startups, to young entrepreneurs? And the other one is to the region, right? So I think first, like I think what I said at the beginning, start early, right? I think entrepreneurship is a journey. You're not going to strike gold on the first venture that you start, right? And get as many experience as possible, right? I think that's for me. I mean, fortunately or unfortunately, I was able to do that. I got into entrepreneurship very early in life, which allowed me to sort of understand the rails very well, so that I am able to tackle new situations, right? Or be able to use that experience to sort of navigate my way through this, right? So I've been in, as you can, I've been in entrepreneurship for over 20 years now. So, which makes me a sort of a veteran as well. So starting early is very important as an entrepreneur, right? Again, like I said, if I repeat myself, you will not strike gold on day one or in the first business itself. If you do, you're super lucky. You should take, you should drive it. You should take advantage of that. The next is, an entrepreneurship journey is tough. It's not easy, right? And it's like an Olympian, right? If you want to run for the Olympics, you can't decide to run today, right? You have to train yourself to run for the Olympics, right? So entrepreneurship is very much like that, right? So you got to train yourself. You got to be, exercising and whatnot, right? Where you got to go through your training to do that. And in some cases, like you have coaches for sports, you should looking at a mentor for yourself, right? People who've gone through this journey, who've experienced entrepreneurship before, right? I'm sure they'll be more than happy to help you in your entrepreneurship, right? I do a few mentorship of some young entrepreneurs myself, right? So sometimes it's good for you to reach out, and ask help from people. Never be shy, right? I think never be shy. Always go out there and talk to people. You never know, your the next idea can come through a conversation, right? So these are opportunities that you should look at, and see how you can drive that. The regional piece, obviously SAARC, we're all in some way connected, right? We sort of think the same way, we sort of have the same value systems, right? So I think there's a lot to learn from each other. As entrepreneurs also, we have a lot to learn. There's a huge opportunities for partnerships, right? I've also want to tell you that it's not about profit making, right? It's all about wealth creation, right? How do we do that in way of partnerships, right? So these are ways that you should look at in your entrepreneurship journey. I hope that sort of answers that question.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you very much for your words. Yeah, I think those were really motivating for all the participants, and also it's
Okay,
been
Mr. Amzad, I guess we have 2 more questions in the chat box. Let's address them as well.
Are you going to read me this?
Yes.
The questions?
Okay. First question is from Mr. Ali Reza Anwar. He mentioned that with AI transforming industry globally, how do you see AI shaping the future of mobility and other sectors in South Asia? Are there specific opportunities or challenges for those startups in this region?
Right, good question. In fact, I'm also finding that answer. So I don't think we're still early days, right? Let's put it that way. We're still in our early days of AI. There are certainly small use cases that we are using it for. In terms of discovery, there's, remember we are on the food, we do food delivery as well. So there is AI being used for food discovery and some use cases in those lines in terms of search and all that. But I don't think we've still gone deeper into this. There's obviously a lot of work happening. We're testing things out. So I don't have an answer today. Maybe I would have an answer maybe 2-3 months down the road. But today I don't have an answer. In fact, if you have an answer, I would love to hear about it, so that we can sort of brainstorm and understand whether there is bigger opportunities with AI.
Yeah, I hope that answers this question. Okay, the next one is from Aisha Khatak. She mentioned that in 2009, your company acquired a popular food and hotel review site. So what was the strategic rationale behind this acquisition, and how did it contribute for the growth and diversification of your company, PickMe?
Yeah, so I think that was very much a strategic acquisition. Because we were making an inroad into the food business at that time. Food business took off around the world. I think everyone was testing many scenarios on how to deliver food. And I think by around 2017, 18, I think it was Gojek and a few other ride-hailing companies around the world sort of figured it out and they launched it, right? So at the same time, we were also doing our homework to ensure that we sort of launched that in Sri Lanka as well. So the company was Yamu. It was a local startup in Sri Lanka which was doing food restaurant reviews. We acquired that so that we can quickly get an inroad into the restaurant industry of Sri Lanka. So it was strategy, correct.
And that was a strategic decision and diversification. Okay. Next question is from Rafia Zafar. She mentioned that your recent IPO for the enlistment of Colombo Stock Exchange was oversubscribed on its opening day. So what does this milestone mean to your company's future, and how do you plan to leverage the success to further innovation and expand your business ideas?
So, I mean, yes, it was oversubscribed. Uh, I try not to look at the stock market, because you just get distracted. And a stock market is essentially, I mean, yes, it reflects on your performance, but if you look at it on a day-to-day basis, it doesn't reflect. I mean, it reflects on the external factors, right? Yes, it was a great milestone for the company. I don't know whether you know that we never raised money in the stock exchange. We only wanted to give our investors, an exit opportunity, right? It was a liquidity event. It was not a fundraising event. So why we obviously had a good success. We have been able to grow the company's value by 2x since we listed 3 months ago. So we will keep doing that. We are very focused on the company in terms of what value it gives. What are the problems that we are solving in Sri Lanka, and that's essentially what we do. So what we want to do is stay focused on our business and make sure that we stay relevant in most cases. In all cases, we stay relevant so that we are able to grow the business for all the good work that we've done so far.
Next question is from Shati Yasmin. I think it has already been addressed at the beginning of our session. What initially struck in your mind to start PickMe, and how do you manage to proceed with your ideas?
Yeah, so I think so you see, one of the good things about technology is that so this is just another side note on that question, is that the world of technology is changing very fast, right? Remember my previous stint was in another startup that was very focused on e-commerce, right? And then obviously we exited that business. At that time, we sold it to a large telecom company. Then I was looking around for what next to do, and then obviously ride hailing just happened to take off around the world, and then I also jumped into it. So that's a good thing about technology. There are what I call waves that takes place, right? And you need to ride that wave when it starts, right? So I think the wave of ride hailing is probably sort of coming down, because you really can't now. It's actually very difficult to now enter, right? Because there's so much of established players like us and many other companies, right? Unless you can find innovation with what we've done, right? So that's how you have to look at it. So whenever the next wave starts, to all the entrepreneurs, you should be ready for that and be able to jump into it as it starts.
Okay, next question is from Qazi Wajid. He mentioned that he's with one organization, FURD, and working on entrepreneurship and vocational and technical trainings. So he mentioned that they have training centers in Jamshoro and Dadu. Those are city in Sindh province as well. And on a need basis, we run satellite training centers in a remote areas. So training for youth and professional trainings as well. So what is your advice on that thing?
What advice can I give? I really I don't know how to answer that question because I haven't been there. I don't know the kind of people that needs the training. I mean, at what level as well? I'm obviously on a tech. I'm in the space of technology. But again, I don't know what these entrepreneurs are aspiring to become. But I think the foundation is, like I said, it's starting early, right? Getting the experience, because entrepreneurship is not about getting an MBA or getting an undergrad, right? So it's all about the experience, right? I'm not in fact, I'm not a person who believes in undergrad and MBAs, right? Entrepreneurship is about experience, right? It's getting to know how to be a businessman, right? How to be an entrepreneur is so much important, because you can't learn that off books, right? From and we all seen it, right? Some of the great entrepreneurs are not great, were not great in academia, right? If not, they've only dropped out of academia. So to answer that question, I don't think I'm doing a good job in answering that question, but it all depends on what entrepreneurship are we trying to teach these people.
Yeah. Next question is from Mr. Thilan. So he mentioned that PickMe is predominantly digitizing the people's mobility in Sri Lanka with a cost-effective model. Do you have a plan to digitize the people's mobility in SAARC region together with relevant partners in South Asia?
Yeah. So I think we've had many inquiries, discussions, right? We are very focused to Sri Lanka, right? I have to, so I need to say that because we are, we've done a lot of work here. We're well integrated with the Sri Lanka ecosystem. So we will keep investing into Sri Lanka, right? Now we have a partnership in Nepal. In fact, right? So that's a partnership that we were invited to come. So we are looking at that kind of partnerships. We will never, we don't want to go into markets that we don't know. So we rely on local nuances, the local knowledge when we sort of look at other markets outside Sri Lanka.
And this is the last question we had from Farhan Saif. As PickMe continues to expand in a competitive ride-hailing and logistics market, how do you plan to differentiate the brand through innovation, customer experience, and technology in the coming years?
Yeah, so I think ride-hailing is also changing. I think we've seen that change in Pakistan, for example, from a normal pressing the button, but where the drivers are now giving you the prices, right? So I think it is evolving. The days of incentives are gone away now, right? It is becoming a lot more, lot more natural, right? Just like the old world. So we are seeing those changes, and essentially the industry is evolving. So so I think a lot will change. I really can't predict the future, but of course, I don't think autonomous will be something that will hit this part of the world very soon, because there are many consequences of that. But I think the world of ride-hailing will change, and it will evolve in the next 10 years.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zulfer. I think that's all we had, all the questions we had. Yeah. So over to Fatima.
Okay, so it was a great Q&A. And Mr. Shafkat Haider, he is Vice President of SAARC Chamber of Commerce and Industry from Bangladesh chapter. He has also joined us. And thank you so much, Mr. Shafkat, for attending this webinar. Would you like to add something?
Well, thank you for having invited me. I got late in joining because the browser wasn't working properly. So it took me a while to get straightened out. So I missed literally half of the conversation, but whatever I've heard is extremely interesting. It's a go-forward attitude for all of us in technology because it's a dynamic world. So we can't stop anywhere. Life keeps moving. We have to keep moving. And that's what I'd like to say. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, sir. It was a great session. And as we conclude this insightful session, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to our esteemed speaker, Mr. Zulfer, who's the founder of PickMe, for sharing the inspiring and success story of PickMe, a true testament to the power of digitalization and innovation in driving business transformation. And Mr. Amzad, the chairperson of SYEF, Thank you for moderating. It was absolutely fantastic. You guided the conversation really smoothly. And I would like to thank all the participants who attended it. And it was a pleasure coordinating and working with both of you. Thank you so much once again. I look forward to more collaborations in the future. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Fatima. Thank you for inviting me. And for everyone who attended, I hope you found it interesting. Feel free to reach out if there's any help you require. And if you're for the folks outside Sri Lanka, if you're if you are here in this part of the country, do ping me. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Zulfer, one of our member from the Bangladesh chapter, SYEF, Mr. Salahuddin, he was a great support in sharing and bringing the participants from Bangladesh. He is requesting for your contact details. So if you allow me, can I share your contact details with them?
Yeah, sure, you can. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye. Thank you, Mr. Amzad.
Bye-bye.
Bye.